How's everyone so far? Okay, okay. These are some basic principles of communication, universal principles. And by imbibing these principles, one can develop a good repertoire and way of presenting wherever one goes for book distribution and for anywhere else, any other kind of communication in life. Can I have the clicker? First is, remember to whom we're speaking. When we are interacting with people, we can see the external body, or we can remember that we're talking to part and parcel of Krishna. And the Shastra tells us to speak to the soul. In the Shri Upanishad, Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaivad bhujanataha tatrako mahakashoka ekatvam manupashitaha. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani vanupashyati. Anupashyati means one should systematically see others as spiritual sparks. And the verse says that one who does that will never have illusion or anxiety. What can be illusion or anxiety for such a person? So I find that when I'm interacting with people on book distribution, and I remember, anupashyati, I purposefully, deliberately remember that I'm speaking to a spirit soul. My perspective is different, and the way I present is different. So this in of itself, the Shastra recommends for freeing oneself from this kind of anxiety when one's talking to people that's based on the bodily conception of life or seeing other people as their bodies and so forth. We're not doing this artificially. It's not that we're trying to become suddenly uttama adhikaris and therefore say, I see everybody as part and parcel of God. But anupashyati, following the Shastra, following the authorities, we can deliberately look and remember that I'm talking to a soul. For instance, it's miraculous when you see people's eyes because there's some consciousness coming back to you through their eyes. If you look around now, it's actually very difficult to look in people's eyes because there's so much spiritual force coming through them. There's consciousness looking back at you, like I'm looking at you now, some of you. And you'll notice somebody's looking back. Who is that? I'm saying that in the course of meeting people, if you remember that, there's a spiritual soul there that's part and parcel of Krishna, and that this body is a walking temple. Prabhupada uses the term tabernacle. Tabernacle is a movable church, a movable temple. So this body also is like that. And the conception of Sankirtan means to move about the world and to approach people remembering that they're actually a sacred essence of Krishna, the soul. Speak from the heart. When you talk to people, remember that if you're speaking from the heart, they'll feel it. And this is one of the statements Prabhupada made, that purity is the force. And in any kind of communication, we find that the purity of the speaker will determine the effectiveness when it comes to spiritual topics. This, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, is mentioned as the saffron mercy particles. Prithu Maharaj speaks about how when a pure devotee talks, the sound vibration touches Krishna's lotus feet. The vibration mixes with the saffron particles that are there at Krishna's lotus feet. And when you hear the sound, it's different. It's surcharged spiritually. This goes back to my point about the strict sadhana. One time when I was in Honolulu, Hawaii, distributing books with my friend Satyadev Prabhu, we had been hearing and chanting at the temple, and we were both feeling very happy. We went on the street, and we were in Dodis, and I was meeting people who are vacationers. There was a honeymoon couple that I stopped, and I showed them the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I explained to them what it was, and I said, we asked for a donation, and they said, we're Christians, we don't believe in this. And we also won't give a donation because we only give to our church. Sometimes you might find when people reject you that you feel a twinge in your heart. Have you ever experienced that? But I didn't feel it that time because I was feeling so uplifted by the hearing and chanting and being happily engaged in the association of with my godbrother that I didn't feel it at all. And when I replied to them, I said, that's all right, I just want to thank you for taking your valuable time. And I shook the man's hand and I said, it was an honor to meet you. It really was an honor. And they walked away. And when I spoke those words, they really felt genuine. It was the mercy of the devotees and the local temple and that I was feeling enlivened. Half an hour later, I was standing talking to someone else, and I saw the same couple standing nearby. And when I had finished talking to the person, they came over and they said, we changed our mind. We'd like to give a donation. So they gave me $5. And I said, no, please take a book. And they said, no, we're not interested. I said, only problem that we have a rule that when we take some money, we have to give a book. And they said, okay, we'll take it. And they went away after that. Happily, we were friends. But it left an impression on me that what we speak and how we speak it actually has a profound effect on people. Long after you leave them, the words that you say to people will stay with them. And when you speak from your heart and you're speaking from purity, it will have a lasting effect on them. And they will be more inclined to read the book. And if they don't even take a book, they'll have a good impression that they'll bring back later. And that will bring them back later to Krishna consciousness. There are austerities of speech. I do a whole seminar called Yoga of the Tongue. Because, of course, there's Padma Purana that says, Atashi Krishnama Adina Bhaved Grayam Indriye Sevamukhi Jevado Swayameva Spuratyada. Our whole practice of yoga begins with how we use the tongue, right? It begins there. Jiva Adhau. And Vacho Vegam, Manasakrot Vegam, the holy instruction of Rupa Goswami, which is essential, his essential teachings, the cream, it starts with Vacho Vegam. So practicing the austerities of speech, as Krishna mentions them in the Bhagavad Gita, keeps one strictly on the path of yoga. And these are very nice. When you speak truthfully, impeccable speech, your word is your bond. You begin to develop power. What you say has a real effect on people. Of course, we mentioned this regularly reciting the Vedas, chanting good rounds, and so forth. These austerities of speech, when practiced by anyone, give you the potency that you need to present books wherever you go. What to speak of relating to everybody in your life. So, in a practical way, when we interact with people, we should be aware of the fact that there is a topic that is the most interesting to every single living entity in the universe. What is that topic? Krishna in Vrindavan, right? Is it? What is it? It is his or her own self. That's what everyone's interested in. In fact, I read a study of a man, sociological study, who would go and start conversations with people casually, and he would only talk about the person. He'd never bring up himself. He'd always divert the conversation back to that person. Oh, what do you do? How do you do it? And so forth. And afterwards, the man's assistant would come and interview the person and say, what did you think of this man, and how was your interaction? They say, well, I didn't find out much about him, but he was the most interesting person that I'd ever met. Means he was talking about them only, not about himself. That's what kept their interest. So you keep this principle in mind. Dale Carnegie, inspirational speaker, writer, entrepreneur, once said that, remember that a man's name is, to him, the sweetest and most important sound in any language. This is one key point. It seems very simple, But if you remember people's names when you meet them, and you tell them their names. I had this experience when in New York City, I was distributing in a train station. And I met this man, he bought a book and then went away. And he came back about a half hour later and said, "What's my name?" And I couldn't remember. And he said, "Give me my money back." And I remember after that, people really care. He felt offended that I didn't remember his name. So I started practicing. When people say their name, I remember their name, and then I noticed that when you say their name, they're like, "Oh, you remembered. How did you know my name?" So this is an important key of communication. It's very personal. People take it personally. If you remember things about them, if you forget, it's something that actually offends them. So Shukadeva Goswami, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, he said, "It is his own self that is most dear to every embodied living being." So we keep that in mind. It's not about us, it's about them. When we go out and we meet people, if you keep concentrating on being interested in them and asking about themselves, they will take an interest in you also. It is simply for the satisfaction of this self that the whole material creation of moving and non-moving entities exist. Isn't that a profound statement? Everyone has a little universe they're living in their mind, and they're living for their self-sustenance and their ego and so forth. So, what does this say on the board? Say it out loud. Okay, now I want you to imagine that everyone in this room has a sign around their neck, and it says, right. Now I want you to imagine that everyone in your state, wherever you live, has a sign around their neck, and it says? Okay, let's try it out. You imagine everyone in this room has a sign around their neck that says, "Make me feel special," right? I want you to turn to somebody next to you and make them feel special. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Turn to somebody next to you and make them feel special. Go ahead. You're doing a great job back there. He's working tirelessly, you two, to help put on the seminar. Thank you very much. Really beautiful. Hare Krishna. Did you make somebody feel special? How was it? It feels terrible, right? Don't you hate it? Don't you hate when people say nice things to you? No, it's nice. And you look around the room now, everyone's smiling, feeling happy. And it's interesting, too. When I first said it, everyone's like, I don't want to turn around and talk to them. I'm going to make them feel special. But if you get in the habit of that, when you're in your environment, around the temple, in your household, in your business, and when you're on Sankirtan, if you go out of your way to make people feel special, your environment will change. The way you interact with the world will change. The way they interact with you will change. And definitely when you go on book distribution, if you want to focus on this, each person you meet, just remember that sign, "Make me feel special." And go out of your way to do it. And you'll find that people will become warm to you. Oftentimes people go out and they're so nervous about distributing books. They're thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? All you really have to do is just try to make people feel special. Even animals like it. If you say to an animal, to a dog, "Oh, you're such a nice dog," he'll go like... And if you meet people too and you say, "You know, you're really amazing," they'll say like, "Finally somebody recognizes me." So just remember this as a formula. Keep this mantra, make people feel special, and you can practice today wherever you go. Just go out of your way. Sit down next to somebody, make them feel special, and see what happens. You see for yourself. This will work, I promise you. So listen. Another thing is listening is very rare in this world. Nobody listens. Everyone's thinking, what am I going to say when they stop talking? But if you take time to listen to people, like when I'm Sankirtan, a lot of times I listen to people. They're saying all kinds of nonsense, but I listen to them, and because I give them a little time, like you saw that video, I didn't know they were going to play that video. It went on for a long time, but that was an extra long interaction. A lot of interactions are a lot shorter, but if you noticed, I was just listening to them and I kept engaging in it because I was looking for the right time. Lord Chaitanya with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. What was it, 7 days? He sat there and listened. Sarvabhauma was espousing Mayavad philosophy, and Mahaprabhu just sat and listened to him until the right time came, and then he said, okay, now I'm going to tell you where it's really at. So practice listening. And these are not just techniques for book distribution. They're techniques for life, communication in life. And if you practice listening to people rather than trying to talk over them or just filtering out what they're saying with this mantra blocks all learning. What is the mantra? Yeah, when someone's talking to me, my mind's going, I know that, I already know that, but I know something better. And when you stop talking, I'm going to tell you what's better than what you just said, right? But if you actually get rid of that, you learn a lot. Because even if someone's telling you the same thing you think you know, but you listen to it carefully, then you start to take in what's actually coming to you rather than blocking it with this mantra, I know that. Here's the radio station. Do they have FM in this country? Okay, here's the radio station, WIIFM. Every sales company in the world teaches this, that you have to tune in to the radio station, to the frequency that people are actually living in. And what is that radio station frequency? What's in it for me? That's WIIFM. That's what people want to know. What do they want to know? What's in it for me? Keep that in mind. That should be your perspective. When you're advertising, when you're writing something, you know, on a blog to sell books, when you're presenting to people, when you're making a pamphlet, people want to know, what am I going to get out of this? And when you're handing over a book, people want to know. When I hand over a book, I'm telling them as I'm handing them the book. Do I have a Gita here? When I'm handing, there's one over here. When I hand the Bhagavad Gita over to someone, I'm telling them in midair, here, come on out here, KMNN. I say, books on yoga and meditation shows you how to get free from stress. I got to get out of the light. I tell them, books on yoga and meditation that show you how to get free from stress. There are many other things we say, but this is one of the things, as I'm handing the book over, I'm telling them what's in it for them. That's what they want to hear. They want to know that, so stay tuned to that frequency. Thank you very much. Now, how are you so far? Let's take a reflection. We'll take 5 reflections. Anything you heard so far that's stuck in your mind? Do we have extra microphones? Okay, go ahead. One thing that was meaningful to you.
Make him feel special.
Yes. Keep that awareness. That's what the sign is.
Speak from the heart.
Speak from the heart, yes.
Remembering the name of the people.
Yes, remember people's
That's very
names.
important.
Yes.
Austerities of speech.
Yes, the austerities of speech. We're practicing yoga of the tongue. It all starts there.
I just want to know if making people feel special is synonymous to appreciation.
Yeah, you appreciate people, and there's an old saying, whatever you appreciate, appreciates. It grows, yeah.
Remembering that you're speaking to the soul.
Speaking to the soul, very good, yeah. I know that. I know that. I already know that. I know that. I knew that a long time ago. Why are you telling me? I know everything. Do you ever meet somebody who knows everything? I met a man, of course I've met a lot of people who said this, but one day it was very pronounced. We were going door to door, and this man, he had knocked on the door, and he comes out, and he looks at us, and he had his bathrobe still on. It was noon. He came out, and I started to show him the Bhagavad Gita, and he goes, oh, Bhagavad Gita, I know. He said, I know everything. And I said, you know everything, really? And I said, get all the other devotees, bring them up here. I want him to meet you. And so I called all the devotees, said, this man knows everything. Ask him any question you want. Okay, yes.
Listen.
Listen, yes. Thank you very much. What else?
How we speak, what we speak makes an everlasting impression on the people.
Yeah, it does. What we say to people, one encouraging word can actually stay with somebody for the rest of their life. And one discouraging word can actually stay with people for the rest of their life. The people are very sensitive. That's why they're called sentient. We're sentient beings. It means we're sensitive. We have feelings. And the words that we speak actually impress, have great effect on people. Yes. Two more.
The radio station,
Which is that radio station? What are you dialed into? Which radio station?
WIIFM.
And what does it mean?
What's in it for me?
Whoa, nice one. Good radio station. Okay. Here.
Hare Krishna. We have to be truthful.
Truthful.
Truthful and the pleasing as well. Yeah.
Truthful and pleasing. Yeah. Krishna gave those principles himself.
In Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, very good, very good. Yes.
The words you say to them, it will stay with them.
Yeah, it's
So
6.
the good impression, if you create, it will bring them back.
Yes.
To give the example.
That's a fact. Thank you very much. Okay. What? Clarification.
See, now I have spent with the devotees, say, for about 20 years, and we are very thick friends. And he knows my heart, I knows his heart. Now, sometimes during the heated argument, we slip, and the words may be slightly, discomfortable. Then will it create a bad impression on him? Or having said that, I apologize after the meeting. I am sorry I said it. So what should be the position?
Well, it depends on your relationship. Just like when Krishna's in Goloka with his friends, they say all kinds of things to him that they wouldn't say in Vaikuntha. In Goloka, the boyfriends, they'll say, "You're not such a big man, Krishna. I can beat you any day. You come in here, I'll wrestle you, I can take you down anytime." And in Vaikuntha, they're Sahasrashesha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. They're very careful what they say. So when you have a close friendship with people, like I have a friend in devotional service, and we can make jokes at each other's expense because we're so close. So it depends. Depends on your relationship. Nice question. Yes? Here comes the mic.
Sometimes truthfulness and being pleasing don't go hand in hand. How do we balance that?
Well, if you're going to speak the truth and it's not going to be palatable, then do so in the best possible way that you can. Remembering that people, sometimes when they hear the truth, you can say, for instance, there's an example given in the communications course. When you're giving feedback to somebody where there's room for improvement. So first they teach you, first you tell them something that worked well. Then you tell them where there's room for improvement. Then you tell them on the bottom something that went well. Put it in a sandwich. It's a little more palatable. There's a Christian preacher I know, and he said he doesn't like to hear anything about his sermon. He gives a sermon on Sunday. He said, "Don't tell me on Sunday, wait till Wednesday, because I'm too sensitive on Sunday. You wait a few days." So you have to just be a little tactful, that's all. Be tactful.
Thank you.
But the truth must be told. Okay, now, this is something Prabhupada taught to the Western devotees when they first came to India. Assail the philosophy, not the person. So this is an example I give you. Sometimes people say, what do you think of such and such Swami? They have their own thing, and they say, what do you think of such and such? You may think he's actually unbona fide in so many things. But if you say that about the person, they'll become offended. But instead, if you say, what's his philosophy? Prabhupada told the devotees, say, ask what his philosophy is. Don't talk about the person. Just say, what's he teaching? What's his philosophy? Then you deal with the philosophy in comparison to the Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, if you talk about the person, then the conversation will shut down. Does it make sense? Okay. Well, here it is. Mr. Sanjay, what do you think of Swami such and such? Devotee, what's his philosophy? Okay, now here's another one. This is for Madhyamadikaris, this is instruction given in the Srimad Bhagavatam about people who are envious or people who are fanatical. Anybody ever met a fanatic? What is a fanatic? a person filled with excessive and single-minded zeal, especially for an extreme religious or political cause. Did you ever meet anybody when you're on Sankirtan that wanted to convert you to something else? They didn't want to listen, but they just wanted to tell you something. They're fanatical. You've met. One person only has met. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've met so many fanatics. And one thing I've learned, I learned this from a book called How to Win an Argument. He's a professor who teaches rhetoric and debate. So here, here's his advice, the principle of how to deal with fanatics. Are you ready? Say yes. Yes. Here's the principle for dealing with fanatics. Don't. They'll save you a lot of time. Sometimes I see newer devotees that go on book distribution and they'll stand in a corner arguing with somebody for 2 hours. Meanwhile, there's all these innocent people walking back and forth, and this is just arguing and arguing and arguing with the fanatic. You don't have to spend so much time. Now, how do I get away from a fanatic? As an example, somebody says, do you know that such and such a philosophy is the only way to attain salvation? Now we welcome His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Ki Jai!